Electricity. This is the second video in a mini-series, drilling down into the technology of dead gods. Exploring some of the surprisingly advanced technology available in the Antediluvian period is going to have a massive impact on all designs going forwards. When it comes to most portrayals of this period, we're used to seeing cultureless, generic, ancient people in robes drunkenly fighting each other in front of simple stone buildings. This is understandable since, when you read the Bible, this portion of the story is over rather quickly. Why spend too much time designing unknown cultures that are going to be destroyed anyway? Well, what if they weren't totally destroyed? What if the many pantheons of false gods that humans have worshipped for millennia can all trace their origin to the antediluvian world? What if the stories of the world that was were preserved on the Ark and spread across the new world, taking on a life of their own? And what if it wasn't just stories that were preserved, but knowledge? Some knowledge passed on from the Watchers, fallen angels with a deep understanding of the secret mechanisms of creation, bent on accelerating mankind's destruction. But also, the knowledge gleaned from people honing their crafts for centuries. A collection of that kind of knowledge could help to kickstart a civilization from scratch. This is a design for a Watcher I'm inventing for this story. The secret knowledge he passed on to humanity was how to harness electricity. On his rune-engraved helmet, he wears fulgurite wings, created when lightning struck sand, flash fusing it into glass tendrils. His face and body are covered in Lichtenberg scars. One eye has been particularly badly damaged and has been replaced with a rune-engraved copper prosthetic. Over his shoulders, his cloak is made from the giant black feathers of some large creature. On his left hand, he holds a copper lightning bolt, which is in contact with a thick wire wrapped around his arm that's been dipped in layers of insulating rubber. You can see his entire lower half has been submerged in a vat of rubber as well. His dead right arm has been scorched to black. On it, he wears copper bracelets and rings. Properly charged, he could administer a deadly shock to those who displease him, leading to the rumor that he can hurl lightning bolts at his enemies. Once you've learned to harness electricity, how do you put it to use? In a world where humans are dwarfed by predators, it could be a useful defensive tool. These guys have come to a remote battery charging station. A more compact version of Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, the statue acts as a wireless energy collector, part of a network spread around their territory. It receives electricity and charges a number of clay batteries. I decided to rework this statue into something a little bit more Art Deco. You'll start to see more and more of that influence throughout this project. Not only is Art Deco just objectively the best art style, it's also a good visual shorthand for an empire at its strongest. The clay batteries are a take on the Baghdad battery. Some people that don't get invited to parties have suggested that the Baghdad battery is nothing but a scroll case that gives off an electric charge. Regardless, these ones are batteries. I made them a little bigger since this is still a relatively new technology. I made them spheres because I think it looks neat, and I justify it by saying that it makes the heavy vessels easier to move around. The batteries fit into sockets, and a conductive serpent head is rotated into place until it makes contact with the copper plate on top, connecting the circuit. For these guys, the batteries power the giant equivalent of a cattle prod. The copper rods are held with insulating glass. A device like this may not kill a dragon or other large creature, but it is highly likely to get it to rethink its meal plan for the day. Because of the intense light created on contact, they wear slit goggles to protect them from the worst of the blinding flashes. Like the previous Watcher, they submerge themselves in a vat of liquefied rubber several times for their insulated workwear. Another, more passive defense system against colossal hunters would be an electric fence. Art Deco-inspired giant figures pull at conductive cables. To ensure some of the smaller creatures don't slip through, hanging copper plates are strung up to fill the gaps. Since we're trying to block up openings, now that we have glass at our disposal, we can use it to narrow the gate in a way that frustrates non-human creatures, while also reinforcing the sculptures above. With the pressing issue of monster defense somewhat addressed, we can turn towards other practical applications of electricity. In the future, I'm excited to devote an entire video to designing Tubal-Cain, the first blacksmith. For now, I'll just quickly touch on the use of induction heating. It's all a bit technical, involving electromagnets, alternating currents, magnetic fields, joule heating, etc. Thankfully, I'm sure a helpful expert is going to write 5 paragraphs about it in the comments, explaining it better than I ever could. The short version, use electricity to heat up conductive metals from the inside by tuning electricity to the right frequency. What really matters here is, I want it in Dead Gods, because the visual of using a giant induction coil that's been designed to look like a serpent is too good to pass up. Aside from really cool-looking blacksmithing, there's another application for this technology that this setting is particularly well suited for: sacrifice. How could they resist putting humans into it? Unfortunately for them, induction works great on conductive metals, but it's not so great on people. So they bind their subjects to a metal pole with conductive wire, an expensive, excessive, and cruel way to go, which makes it perfect for sacrifice. I wanted to save my favorite for last: electricity applied at a grand scale. There's a lot of fun conversation about the pyramids actually being power generators. Stuff about how they're covered in insulating quartz with conductive tunnels within, allowing them to collect electricity from the atmosphere and wirelessly transmit it. My rule for Dead Gods is first to respect the source material. From there, I can then look at multiple interpretations and secondary sources and have fun with the most visually spectacular versions. Power generating pyramids is fun. To start, these aren't the pyramids of Egypt. For the Antediluvian world, one way I want to imply humanity's expert knowledge and skill is to have them build even taller than we usually see. While these taller pyramids are impressive, they may also be structurally more vulnerable to future cataclysms. I added the ancient, polished version of the Wardenclyffe Tower balls on top. A nice side benefit is them looking like golden suns. In the daylight, they would be bright landmarks for miles. For the pyramids themselves, I wanted to again take the opportunity to lean into Art Deco. At this scale, they're too prominent of a canvas to simply leave blank. I designed two sides, but later on there may be a need to design more. The first is the looming face of a watcher looking down on the people below. The second is a full-body representation of a watcher. He has vainly had himself portrayed as possessing seraphim-like wings adorned with eyes. This act of stolen valor, co-opting the symbols of the throne guardians, the seraphim, won't be uncommon. You'll have noticed the gigantic light bulb on the right. Many will already recognize it as being based on a famous Egyptian motif. The image is one part of a creation myth, and it shows the serpent Harsomptus emerging from a lotus flower in an oval which may represent the womb of Nut. There's a fringe theory that it actually represents an early light bulb. Archaeologists refute this idea, citing a lack of evidence like glass fragments, sockets, or filaments, which is pretty reasonable. So for this giant light bulb, the incandescent coil uses the same serpent motif. We get to rely on glass again for the large bulb. Its socket is a copper lotus with long prongs stuck into the earth. The distant pyramids emit power through the ground, allowing mankind to push the darkness back as far as their electricity can reach. In the future, this will also afford me the opportunity to design some tall, underlit, Art Deco-inspired antediluvian cities. But I have to be patient. There's at least one more technological branch to explore on our way there. Next up is sound. You can help this project. Click the buttons, leave a comment, go to my website, buy a book or a print, follow me on stuff, sign up on Patreon. Thank you all so much for the support you've already shown. It's been overwhelming. And a special thank you to my Dragon Tier patrons. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.